Today I'm talking about the Martin D-28. Cheers. So this is arguably one of the most well-known and famous guitars, especially acoustic guitars, of all time. And this comes courtesy of Maury at Maury's Music. If you're in the USA and looking for a Martin guitar, I strongly suggest you give him a call. He's a great guy. And also check out our Martin Monday shows at 4 p.m. EST on my YouTube channel where we talk everything Martin guitars. This is a really, really great example of a D-28. Now, if you don't know what that means, a D-28, the D stands for Dreadnought, and the history of that name is that it comes from a ship. It was named after the HMS Dreadnought because of its big body and big sound. And I'm sure there's people out there that want to ask me, which do you prefer, the HD-28 or the D-28? I will get to that question later on. But for now, let's take a look at the specs on the screen and talk about this guitar. So we'll start with the headstock. There's the classic kind of logo up there. I'm very happy that Martin, in the last kind of maybe 24 months, switched to Grover tuners. These are the open gear, vintage looking tuners on the back. And I love them, and I love the Grover version. They're really great. I'm glad they made that change. These strings are the Martin Authentic Acoustic 13 gauge, which is what ships with the guitar, which is why I put them on here. And I've got to say, on this guitar, they feel great. Also, the action feels great here. Now, before we get going, Maury has installed a trance amulet pickup in this guitar. And that means he's also installed a strap button and an end-pin jack. That will not come with the D-28 from the factory, but Maury could install that for you for a fee. Just to be clear, if you purchase this guitar new, it doesn't usually come with the end pin, the strap button, or the pickup unless you're buying the electric E version. Now, onto the neck. I love these necks. Let me know in the comments if you love these necks too. I was just thinking, is it because I've played these Martin necks for so many years that I'm used to them? I just find them to be absolutely perfect for my hand. They just feel absolutely great. The nut is 1 3/4 inch, great for fingerstyle. You have the round dots on here, the very traditional look of this D-28. And then the top of the wood on this is fantastic. This top here is solid Sitka spruce, and it looks like this up close. I'll try to keep it out of the light. The gloss is so reflective. But check out that grain. That almost looks like an Addy top, doesn't it? The straight grain and the gaps between them, it looks really, really nice. And the pickguard looks great on there. All very traditional and very classy. I love it. The back and sides are East Indian rosewood. And again, a very nice looking grain. Very interesting grain. And that gloss is so striking that you can see. And we've got this white binding here. And last but not least, the back. Remember, every piece of wood is different. This is a very interesting piece of wood on the back. Look at that. Kind of a waviness to it. Gives it a lot of character. But like I said, every guitar, every piece of wood looks different. So check out the pictures of the guitars on Maury's website. Or maybe the looks are not that important to you. Maybe it's all about the sound and playability. Let me know in the comments below. So this thing looks great. It doesn't feel too heavy. I absolutely love it. And I'm 6'5", so for me it's quite comfortable to play as well. And like I said, I love the neck. I love the action on this. But once more, this has come from Maury's Music after a pickup install, so it may not be factory spec. But I do find Martins to be very consistent from the factory these days. They play really well. They kind of have this reputation of being hard to play. I think that's from a few years ago. They come from the factory now from a Plek machine, which levels all the frets and allows for a very low action without buzzing. And I actually find the Martins to be some of the most playable acoustic guitars that I ever play. And I am a fan of other brands too, like the Maton, the Cole Clark, the Fender Acoustasonic, and I could go on and on. But there is something very playable about these guitars, and I don't know exactly what it is, but I just love the feel and playability of these modern Martins. I really do. This guitar features non-scallop bracing. Now, most acoustic guitars these days, or at least a lot of acoustic guitars, have scallop bracing. This is where they cut away the middle part of the brace, and it kind of accentuates the highs and lows. And a lot of people really like that sound. You know how when you go to your stereo, you might make a smiley face on the EQ because it sounds more kind of airy and 3D-like? Well, that's why they do it on these acoustic guitars. For a while, the early D-28s didn't have scallop bracing. They were non-scallop, so you could say this is more traditional. And the question is this a good thing or a bad thing? For example, the Martin HD-28 does cost a little bit more, but some players like the non-scallop bracing. What do I think? Well, let's see. let's do some strumming on this and see what it sounds like. All right, that was pretty heavy strumming. I really like that. And in the room, it's very different. Remember on YouTube, what you hear through this single mic in front of the guitar, right down here in front of the guitar, is not like it sounds in the room. You have to always remember that. But I really like playing this guitar solo. That mid-range just gives me this kind of thwack and punch that a lot of guitars don't have and that I'm always looking for. I really like that. And you could hear it there, right? It's a really full, kind of narrow sound. You still hear that thunderous bass that you expect to hear from a dreadnought, but you just get this real punch in the face. And I think for playing acoustically, playing outside, playing solo, unamplified, that would be really, really useful. For example, if I got called to play a gig in Central Park acoustically, I'd love to take this guitar with the 13 gauge strings on it and a heavy pick and really lay into it. It's going to kind of cut through. Mid-range does cut through. And for me, there's still enough bass there. It's quite a rumble down there. But I do like the sound of a mid-scoop myself. It can be a very pretty kind of sound. You get a bit more sparkle on the high end. Having said that, for that strumming, I thought it sounded really great. Now, if I recorded that for an album, I'd probably cut that with EQ anyway. And remember, if you're plugging in or recording, you can always apply EQ and get any sound you want. But in the room, I really do like that power. I think it's really cool. Let's see how the guitar sounds for fingerstyle. I kind of feel the same way. It has this great kind of fullness in the mids, but it doesn't have that sparkle that I might like from a scallop brace guitar. You know, this is really tough. To be honest with you, the reason I haven't made this review as fast as I wanted to is that I've really struggled with this in a way. There's something really nice about a scoop mid type sound you get from scallop bracing. There's also something really nice you get from the non-scallop bracing, this fullness. And only you can decide which one you prefer. If you are looking at the D-28 and HD-28, which are very similar guitars, construction-wise, they're the same, but the bracing is scalloped in the HD. It's really tough to answer. I do have a video where I compare the two, and I'll link that below in the description so you can check it out later on. It might be helpful to you. But I'm really torn between the two. I kind of wish there was a guitar which is in between a D-28 and an HD-28, to be honest. At the same time, be careful when comparing guitars, because when you compare them back to back, they're very much different, and you might like one thing about one and one thing about the other, and vice versa. But I honestly believe if you purchase a D-28 or an HD-28, you'd be very happy with either of them. And they're both just great in different ways. They actually sound like very different guitars. It's kind of crazy, just from scalloping the bracing. But if you're looking for a guitar with that power and punch, I think you'll like this, especially if you're a bluegrass player. Check this out. Now, I don't play bluegrass, but obviously that extra mid-range is going to give you that cut. Like with an electric guitar, where you tend to turn the mids up to be heard, this is going to have those acoustically. So if you're playing with a band acoustically or even amplified, you're going to get a lot of sound from these single note lines, a lot of fullness to them, which I think will be a really great thing. Yeah, so I really like the lead playing and the strumming on this thing. Fingerstyle, it's good too. Maybe I could use a bit more high end. You could always try some different strings as well. Maybe the 80-20 bronze instead of the phosphor bronze strings. So that's kind of it. There's not much to say about these guitars. They're just great, no-nonsense guitars. They really are. They look great, they sound great, they feel great. And the only question I would have to ask myself with this is, do I get the HD28 or the D28? And I really wanted to come to a solid conclusion, and I honestly just cannot. This is great in its own way. The HD28 is great in its own way. You can't really go wrong with either of them. Do you need both? I would argue maybe you don't, but then you could probably argue that you do. But I think Martin are doing a great job with these. Like just the quality of the construction and the look of this one is just amazing. The tuners are great. The intonation is perfect. I checked it out. The action is great. You can see here though, the strings have started to wear already. It is very hot right now in the summer in New York City, which may be why. But I've also been using Elixir strings lately. And if you have problems with strings corroding quite quickly, maybe try Elixir strings. They're very good as well. I tend to use both, and I think I prefer the Martin strings, but for longevity, the Elixir strings do last longer for me. I really like them a lot. So in conclusion, I honestly think if you're looking for a Dreadnought acoustic, you cannot go wrong with one of these. I'm really impressed with this guitar, and I really like it a lot. It comes with a hard shell case. I'll put a picture on the screen. And this one does have a pickup installed by Maury's Music, which I'll be reviewing in the future. So if you'd like to see that and more videos, please subscribe and ring the bell. I really would appreciate it. I'm going to play you out, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.